Platinum difficulty has now been added to the multiplayer of Mass Effect Andromeda, and with it comes the hardest challenge players have yet faced. I'm Darcblade, and in this video I'm going to go over the basics of Platinum difficulty and how best to beat it. Now firstly, what is Platinum difficulty? Basically it's the hardest difficulty setting available in the multiplayer. You have Bronze, Silver, Gold, then Platinum. And while it bears similarities to the other difficulty settings, this one is a lot tougher. Enemies have more health, they hit harder, especially the enemies who have purple names and stars under their health. And on top of that, there are a few changes that you wouldn't find in the other difficulties. For example, you get your standard 7-wave mission where you take on waves of enemies followed by an extraction round on wave 7. However, unlike the other difficulties, you get objective rounds on 2, 4 and 6. Objective rounds are the rounds that you take on to earn credits by doing mission objectives. These can be devices, bosses, upload, hack or retrieval. Of course, on Platinum difficulty, these can be a challenge. While some objective rounds like devices and retrieval can easily be completed by an infiltrator class, the other objective rounds are a little bit more tricky. Now on top of the enemy having more health, shields, armor and being able to deal more damage to you, the other draw and unique aspect of Platinum difficulty is that enemy factions are now mixed. This means no matter what enemy faction you choose, you will be facing multiple faction types. For example, if you take Revenant, there will also be an abundance of Outlaw and Ket troops during the mission. Of course with Platinum you're also faced with the more tougher opponents of each faction. Berserkers, Hydras, Destroyers, Ascendants and Fiends. These are all in abundance. But on top of that, Platinum also boasts boss enemies in normal waves. These new boss enemies that you would normally find in the other difficulties on objective rounds now spawn during the mid to later waves on Platinum difficulty. These boss enemies are variants of the harder difficulty units each faction has. So for example, with the Remnants, they have an enemy called the Progenitor. This destroyer-like enemy has a large health pool, loads of shields and armor. Of course it has the standard turrets on each side, but instead of blasting you with rapid fire lasers, these now fire slow moving projectiles that explode. On top of that, it can spawn observers and is very aggressive. It will still open its core to shoot at you occasionally, but it would prefer to run you down and use its AoE attack, so take that in mind when taking on this tough opponent. With the Outlaw faction, they have the Blaze Hydra, an advanced version of the standard Hydra. Whilst the standard Hydras are quite slow and bulky, the Blaze Hydra is incredibly fast. On top of that, it has all the attacks the standard Hydra has, including rockets that it locks on with its eye, its standard railgun and its melee attack. The most dangerous thing about the Blaze Hydra is its sheer speed. It can quickly get to your location in seconds when compared to the standard Hydras. And then finally with the Ket, you have the Ket Behemoth. We've already fought this unit before during one of the Apex missions, as well as in the single player. It's basically a Ket Krogan. As the DNA of the Krogan has been spliced with Ket genetics, it's highly aggressive, dangerous in melee, and comes with an incredibly annoying weapon. This slow firing weapon will fire a grenade that will explode into a dome and remain there for a few seconds, damaging you if you stay put. This can easily flush you out of cover. On top of that, the Krogan Behemoth has a very good health regeneration ability, granting him large amounts of health back. This can make things difficult on Platinum difficulty, especially when you're faced with one of these boss units alongside standard versions of Hydras, Krogans, Destroyers, Fiends and Ascendants. But what seems to be the best way of taking on Platinum difficulty? Well, the be all and end of it comes down to teamwork, working with other players to take on the most difficult challenge that Mass Effect's multiplayer has to offer at the moment. Through my experience, there seems to be one of two ways of taking on the Platinum difficulty, either by hunkering down or roaming around the map. Both have to be done as a team though, you can't go off on your own and expect to live long. Whilst I personally feel that hunkering down is more beneficial, there will be times where even hunkering down is not enough and you have to move and change location. Communication can also come in handy when it comes to taking on Platinum difficulty. Now while hunkering down and staying together or roaming around the map while staying together is all fine and good, you have to consider the classes and characters you are using. At the moment the infiltrators seem to have it easiest when it comes to Platinum difficulty. If a team is comprised solely of infiltrators, they can normally pull through okay, as long as they got the DPS to do so. However, not everyone likes infiltrators, and sometimes they can get a little bit dull, so you want to spice it up with the other characters available in the roster. With that in mind, try to think of what other characters are being used. You could divide the characters into different sections, different roles so to speak. You have your damage dealers, your burst damage characters, able to deal high amounts of damage and bring down enemies quickly. You then have the debuffers, like the human engineer or the Solarian operator, who can reduce the effectiveness of enemies or make them take more damage. You then have support characters who can heal your teammates' shields, again like the Solarian operator, any character who has energy drain with team drain, or the Angaran insurgent. And then finally you have the characters who can take on objectives, like the infiltrators, who can pretty much safely go and take an objective whilst the rest of your team draw the enemy fire to them. So really consider the diversity of your team when you're going into Platinum difficulty. Of course, one of the biggest issues when it comes to Platinum difficulty that I've found is your characters and weapons. There is a little bit of a DPS and survivability check. If you don't have high weapons or high leveled characters, then you're going to struggle or put extra strain on the team. For example, if you're hunkering down and you find that your team is often getting overrun, it means that maybe there isn't enough DPS in your team. If you find that you're going down in 1 or 2 shots, granted, a boss enemy could pretty much one-shot almost all characters, maybe you don't have enough survivability points in your build. So these things all need to be taken into account. Remember that the character guides that I have been making are aimed at gold and was also intended for platinum. So on the whole, most of them should still work on platinum difficulty. Of course, at the end of the day, some characters are going to have an easier time on platinum than others. Characters who are glass cannons may struggle a little bit, but with the right gear and if the player is good enough, then any character should be able to take on platinum difficulty. Of course, consumables will help complete your mission. Whilst rockets have been nerfed and really will only tickle enemies now, they can still be used when you're getting swamped by lots of enemies to maybe clear out some of the weaker ones. Ammo packs can come in handy for when you need to replenish your ammo or power cells and you're not near an ammo box. And first aid and revive packs are pretty self-explanatory. They will be used a lot on platinum difficulty. Of course, if you complete platinum difficulty, you'll get the largest reward available to you in the multiplayer. The rewards are normally enough for you to buy a premium pack or premium pack equivalent for just completing one match. So if you're able to farm platinum difficulty, it can really speed things up in completing your Mass Effect Andromeda roster. Some final tips I can give you is that if you do get upload or hack for one of your final objective rounds, maybe leave it to the objective based characters like the infiltrators to focus on the objectives and just draw away enemy attentions from the upload or hack points. Yes, it means that you may not get a gold rating for the objective round, but at least you'll complete it. Of course, this is a lot of pressure on the infiltrator player or players, but they are best qualified for this job. If it's not already obvious, the reason I keep saying that infiltrators are the best to take objectives are because thanks to Tactical Cloak or Stealth Grid, they can drop enemy aggro altogether, meaning the enemies won't necessarily pay attention to them. So by doing this, using their stealth abilities, they're able to go to objective areas, and as long as they remain passive, using Tactical Cloak or Stealth Grid often enough, they should be able to take the objective in relative safety. This also can apply for when it comes to reviving teammates as well. The other tip would be to use boosters, especially your highest ones. Gold or above would be preferable. This will definitely help with the enemies of platinum difficulty. And the final tip is if you're dealing with a troublesome boss enemy, maybe work and focus on taking down all the little enemies first and then teaming up for the boss at the end. Overall, platinum difficulty is a challenge. It is not for everyone, and I'll still stand by that. But if you're high enough level, have high enough gear and characters, or with a group of friends, or you're just an awesome player, then platinum difficulty is a lot of fun. Yes, it can be tough, yes it can be frustrating, you'll eat through your consumables very quickly taken on this mode, but I feel that the rewards are worth it. But anyway, I hope this guide helps just a little bit in giving you some idea on how to take on platinum difficulty. Of course, don't forget to check out my other guides, especially when it comes to the video about hunkering down versus roaming teamwork, as well as the character class guides. These should help a little bit, but if you have any other tips for how to take on platinum difficulty, leave a comment down below. Also, leave any horror stories you have of platinum difficulty, because they are always fun to read. And until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer class guide to how to take on platinum difficulty. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.